Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night from anywhere the viewers watching around from the world. Welcome to another show on LATOKEN VCTV. Today is another great day where we have a full house of investor panel members where we'll be discussing particularly about India. India, the arising opportunities and what kind of investment scenarios are we looking at and its vibrant ecosystem. So India has the third largest startup ecosystem right now, and every day and every month, few of the startups are going unicorn. A lot of buzz and a lot of things are happening around the world with respect to India. So yes, let's start with the topic today. And before we start, I just want to give you a brief introduction about myself. My name is Amit Das. I work here at LATOKEN. I'm connecting from India. So, yep, we have an investor panel from all around the world, two from India and one from United States of America. Let's start with a brief introduction and the kind of work they have done so far. Let's start with Gary.
Great to be here, Amit. Great to see some friends, and feels good to be with our VCTV family. Anyhow, my name's Gary Fowler. I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor. I've done 17 companies, 2 unicorns. I was on the original management team at Click Software, sold to Salesforce for 1.35 billion a little over 2 years ago, and also Eva.ai. I co-founded that 5 years ago with Dr. David Yang. Billionaire who had founded a company called Abby. So love artificial intelligence and quantum computers. I've written 126 articles. Actually, my 126 came out yesterday, and in Forbes. I'm a CEO, president, co-founder of GSD, Get Shit Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in Santa Clara, California. It was great to be here, and again, great to see friends.
Thank you, Gary, for your kind introduction. With me, we have two panel members from India today. One is Anup, another one is Ashwin. Both are connecting from India. Let's start with Ashwin, your introduction and the kind of work that you have done so far.
Hi, Anup. Hi, Amit. Good to be here. Back again for my second sort of session with LATOKEN. It's been a few months, so fantastic to be back. So I run an early stage venture capital fund called the Parath Innovation Fund, and we invest out of 2 vehicles into 2 very different type of startups. Our first vehicle invests in deep tech startups that are globally between 100K AI companies in our portfolio currently, and multi-sector in terms of just what we address from a sector standpoint. We are looking at startups that are typically have established some amount of product market fit. Our second vehicle invests in India market-focused startups, which also support an inclusion criteria and address economically backward sections of society through tech enablement, bringing in efficiencies through delivery of education, healthcare, and so on, more for the Indian market and Indian consumers. This is my second fund. I ran another fund before this called the India Innovation Fund, started back in 2009-10 timeframe. We exited in 2017 to a secondaries fund from Hong Kong, and this fund has now been running for about 2.5 years or so.
Thank you, Ashwin. We'll talk a bunch of things about your startup and the kind of work you've done in the coming time in this show. Let's move on to Anup. Anup, welcome to the show and your short introduction and the kind of work that you have done so far.
Yeah, thank you, Amit. And as Gary said, great to be amongst friends, and certainly seeing Gary again on LATOKEN. So great to be here. Hi, Ashwin. Orias is an early stage tech VC. We've been investing in India since 2008, and have 3 unicorns. The latest one being Pharmeasy, the Amazon of pharmaceuticals in India, and hopefully a few more on the way. We've built our portfolio across sectors, and we identify large market sizes, large problem statements, with the hope that the teams that we work with will create success stories and definitely make an impact on the Indian economy and consumers or businesses alike. And if India has to jump to being a 5 trillion economy, then digital is the only way to go. So we truly believe in that.
Thank you, Anup. Anup, did I hear it right that
Thanks,
you
Amit.
invested in Farmeasy? Sorry, I would
Yes, we
like
were
to
one of
repeat
the
myself.
early investors in.
Okay. Exciting. Farmeasy just got into. I think Farmeasy became a unicorn. In this week, right? So yes, really exciting. Really exciting to talk about these topic today. Okay, let's start with the introduction. Why India? Why India? Why India is on the map, and why everyone is so everything is so much buzz around India. Let's start with Ashwin.
I think there are two parts of it, right? And you're right. There's a lot of buzz. Last week, just in the last 1 week, we've had five new unicorns.
Ashwin,
Look at the last
Ashwin, I'm
week.
really sorry.
I think there are two, three things which are happening, which are very interesting. The first,
Ashwin, yeah, your internet connection is a little disturbing. So you are breaking, and we are losing somewhere in between. So yeah, can you repeat it again? What you just said right now? I'm really sorry for that. Yeah.
no,
Yep, Ashwin, we'll come to you. We'll come to you later. Let's hear from Anup. Anup, what are your views? Why is there so much buzz around India's startup ecosystem? Please share your views.
come back.
Well, I think Ashwin's wanting to come in. Maybe I'll let him.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, maybe he's got stuck again. So maybe I'll just carry on and then get joined by Ashwin. Amit, the story actually started last year with the onset of the first wave of COVID. We heard about the investments coming into geo platforms from the who's who of all parts of the world, particularly the U.S. investment ecosystem. Almost $17 billion being invested into the company, including from very reticent, I would say, investors who've come in at later stages like Silver Lake. And of course, there was Facebook, Google, everyone sort of coming in, Qualcomm, etc. And what that signified to everyone was that India was on the highway to digitization, and COVID-19 was only accelerating this pace and taking it 3 years ahead of its time. And we saw that taking place in all different sectors, starting with e-commerce. We had a huge consolidation wave. Flipkart had been already purchased by Walmart, and we saw a big consolidation take place on the e-commerce space with Amazon and then Tata's and some of the Indian corporate houses taking vantage positions. The next place was really the e-pharmacy, of which Farmeasy is a part, and we saw consolidation taking place here as well. We also saw Tiger and SoftBank becoming extremely active in the market, and today we have, if I'm not mistaken, we have another 13 or so unicorns since last year, which have been born out of this entire period, while we've all been doing Zoom calls from our homes. These businesses have now become real. These businesses are now being felt by consumers and businesses alike. They are transforming lives, and India is on this space. Rules for listing of companies has been made much smoother. a lot of changes on the regulatory side on the way. A big question that used to come in the minds of investors was always about liquidity and exits. Now, that's not a concern anymore because you have corporate exits, you have IPOs. Recently, we had a gaming company called Nazara Technologies list themselves on the Indian Stock Exchange. And no prizes for guessing. One of their businesses is actually targeted at the U.S. market, and they are they're competing with ABC Mouse and Peppa Pig and all of that. So there are some real businesses which are creating value on the technology side, and they're being recognized, for their revenue streams, which are coming from all parts of the world, as also from the Indian economy as well. There are educational businesses which have taken off last year, as we all know, with Byju's and White Hat and so on and so forth. So there's tremendous activity coming on the private market side. Private markets are, happy to list themselves on the public markets. The entire path has been made much smoother. We are seeing a listing of almost a dozen companies lined up over the next 12 months. All of them are formal announcements: Zomato, Delivery, MobiKwik, and many others. So all of these are companies, going to create a lot of value for their investors. So all of this is attracting more capital, setting off a virtuous cycle. Once everybody knows that the cycle of digital adoption is just one way and it's only going to get faster.
Excellent, excellent, Anup. The fact that digital adoption is on the rise with India, and COVID-19 has just accelerated this growth is completely true to its core, and that is why lot of buzz is happening. These points are excellent. Ashwin, I think your connection is stable right now. Can you add some points here?
I think it was called out correctly, right? I mean, we have had about 5 unicorns in the last 10 days. But obviously, all of this started some time back, 4 or 5 years back. And a couple of things that have happened over the years have really been that there's been a lot of critical mass that has gathered in the ecosystem. It's not one factor, it's multiple factors coming together. A bunch of investors have come in, early stage investors, later stage investors on the private equity side. You have a whole lot of startup founders. It's becoming a lot more fashionable, quote unquote, to be a startup founder these days. And this trend started back in 2010 timeframe and reached perhaps a critical mass more around 2015-16. And then more recently, what we are seeing is the whole emergence of mobile first, or the mobile device becoming a delivery channel to all sorts of consumers across India. You go from urban to tier 2, tier 3, and they've been empowered in terms of their ability to use technology simply because they now have access to a mobile. And so there have been a whole lot of startups that are emerging, areas like education, areas like gaming, where your mobile device allows you to access content of a variety that you've not been able to do before. And I think it's the culmination of these many things, which is why there is a buzz now and a whole lot of things that are happening at this point of time. To me, it's just the beginning of a lot of things that are still to come. And I think we've sort of hit a critical mass at this point.
Great. Thank you, Ashwin. Thank you, Ashwin. Gary, sitting in a vantage point in USA, how do you view the buzz around startup ecosystem in India? How do you view it, and what are your points?
Well, remember, intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities aren't necessarily spread. We see incredible opportunities in India. In fact, we've got, GSD has been curating opportunities in India. What we see is we use Silicon Valley as a port to the rest of the world. Why? Because we get higher valuations and the amount of partnerships, like fishing. I mean, if you're going to go fishing, you want to go fishing where there are a lot of fish. So, I see incredible opportunities really across the board. Artificial intelligence. You're right about the number of unicorns. Although, as I said, it's kind of funny when we, I have to smile. We talk about unicorns, but they're mythical creatures. They don't exist. So we're trying to breach something that doesn't exist It's like being Peter Pan or something. It's weird when people say it, but nonetheless, there's incredible opportunities, and it's really curating and cultivating those opportunities to be able to go global. We look at it as really there are three levels. One is acceleration, two is regional dominance, and the third and most important is really going global. So, it's been, I've been working with India since 1991, actually. So you can imagine started off with software development, getting software development done, et cetera. But that's really the beginning of the system, right? So you start to talk about software development, then you move over to products, et cetera. So I'm looking at it. It's a bright future. India is open for business. It's not like some places where they've really shut the door and tried to isolate. It's really open for business. So I'm excited about it. It's incredibly, incredibly exciting for us. We're seeing a lot of those Indian startups, and we're ready to sit down and meet with them and talk about how we can turn them into another unicorn.
Great, thank you, Gary. Yes, India is open for business, and the government of India has done a tremendous job in supporting the startup ecosystem here. So moving on to the next question, moving on to the next part. What kind of startups, in general, can get into the unicorn level? Like, is it high technology growth startup, or is it startups that solve a particular problem? What are the kind of key criterias that are specific to the Indian ecosystem are we observing, the trends that we have observed and the trends that are coming to be in the coming times that we can observe, which can actually motivate or inspire the young entrepreneurs all over India. So what are these key factors that are required, which can take this startup from India to a unicorn level? Let's start with Anup.
Yes, Amit. So if your question is that, what makes a unicorn from India get global scale?
Exactly, Anup. You got it right.
Okay. So I think the India story is very clear. We've got costs on our side, and we play with it anywhere in the world. We played it 20 years ago with BPOs and KPOs, and we'll continue to play with it in our own markets as well. Because India is a highly stratified market. We're not a rhombus; we're a pyramid when it comes to income and socioeconomic classes. So we need to have millions of consumers, but we need to give them access to technology at low cost. That's the only way business works. That's when it becomes scalable, and that's how you can make profits. When you just carry on the same logic and apply it to anywhere else in the world, particularly where the labor rates are much higher, then you can obviously make the same technology work to give you a higher ARPU, or a higher revenue per business unit, as they call it. So therefore, this is something that you can create value on the back of, and that's what Indians are very good at. We're good at technology. I think, and that's what people come hunting to India for, whether it's AI, as Gary was mentioning, deep tech, etc. These are the places where we've already created a lot of success stories. So all you have to do is adapt your solution to another market, and you've got a success story going on over there. Coupled with the fact that a large number of Indians can speak English, and it's an English literate market, obviously opens up a lot of doors very naturally as well. The Indian diaspora is present in different parts of the world, and all of them are very business friendly and business minded, and that's one of the reasons why they went over to those countries, immigrated to those countries, either for education, then did business, got into good positions in corporates, as well as set up their own businesses and are good businessmen essentially. So that, I think, keeps the whole economy, I would say, running on the back of this very enterprising culture that we have here in India, which we have transported to different parts of the world. And technology is what the world is hungry for at this point of time. And we are in the best place to give it to them in every sector. First, we can do it for ourselves, and then, of course, we can do on the back of it we can create solutions that can be adapted for others. Of course, there is the enterprise SaaS segment, which is particularly targeted only overseas, where there are definite problems, there are gaps in the market, and some Indian large Indian startups in the SaaS space like Zoho, Freshworks, etc., have already created success stories by creating solutions which are catering to overseas consumers. And in fact, now they are doing business back in India with a lot of SMEs. So it works quite the reverse way as well in the enterprise SaaS space. So the first customer is outside of India, and then you start serving some of the domestic consumers. So the story works both ways.
Awesome points, Anup. Ashwin, any other points that you want to add to this to this discussion? Yeah, Ashwin, I think you are on mute.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was on mute. Amit, let me try and address another part of your question, which was funds. And I think what has been happening so far is that most of the startups that have made it in the last few years to the unicorn list out of India have been, consumer-focused startups focusing on the India market. I do think that trend will continue. There are a lot of inefficiencies that still exist in various aspects or sectors, which could be healthcare, which could be insurance. Insurance is highly underpenetrated in India. Think about continual and value. The second set, which is perhaps the emerging set, where you do have a few unicorns, and Anup spoke about this, are the SaaS startups, which are addressing global markets. So you have the Freshworks, you do have the Zohos of the world, and I do think there are going to be more and more areas where SaaS startups, which are coming out of India, are going to play. The third, which I think is the real emerging one in being a little nascent and so on. And so you had a unicorn last year, a startup called Postman, which suddenly hit a $2 billion valuation. I think you're going to have a lot more deep tech startups which are addressing global enterprise markets, B2B markets, and I think that's the new emerging wave that I see coming, perhaps in the next year, couple of years, and then and so in the being area of generation of unicorns, if you can call it that, out of
Yep, Ashwin, we lost bits and bits of your points here and there because of the internet connection. Sorry for that. I think it would be better if you can maybe shift your place somewhere where you can speak properly. That would be great. Any which ways, let's go on to Gary. Gary, any such kind of things that you want to add to this discussion right now?
Yeah, so one of the things that, let's look at our world today. Today, there are about 40 zettabytes of data on the planet. If we looked at, what does that mean? If we took CDs or DVDs and stacked them one on top of another, it would go 29 times between the Earth and the Moon. That amount of data grows every year. It grows about 67.8%. We're in a state of infobesity. In our own personal world, each one of us has about 300,000 items within our own personal cloud. The entire web in 1996 was 257,000 websites. Think about it, Amit. How many times every week do you say, I know that file exists, but I can't find it? Why? I've either forgotten the location or the keywords. So again, a state of infobesity. You've got 5 to 7 email addresses, Dropbox, Box, Google Drive, Slack, Zoho, Salesforce. You've got repositories all over the place. How many times a week do you say, somebody says to you, I sent you a message. Did you get it? Where did you send it? So we now have an opportunity with the great minds in India to develop incredible tools to help us, not smart, but intelligent assistants. We are in a state of infobesity where the beauty is across multiple vertical markets, it's all about data, right? AI is the new electricity. India's got some of the greatest brains in the world to be able to solve these very complex problems. As we start to move forward, as I said, there's 300,000 items in the personal cloud today. There'll be 10 million in 5 years for each one of us. So we need to have those capabilities across the board to help us interpret the data. Look at the supply chain. We can't even get a roll of toilet paper, but we have quantum computers. Drug discovery. I was on a panel in Europe, a PharmaVision panel at the beginning of the pandemic. And that panel was, there were some questions around bench time versus artificial intelligence and drug discovery. So we're in this incredible time. The digital transformation is upon us and been forced by COVID. So the Indian startups that take art of deep learning, machine learning, really can help us in an unsupervised way understand this data are going to help, are laying the foundation for the next unicorns across, as I said, multiple vertical markets. So it's really exciting for everything from space tech to manufacturing, supply chain, drug discovery, health tech, you name it. So it's a great time. And if I was one of those startups out there today, I would be saying, in fact, I have one of them, Splitbyte. He's a PhD from IT. It's one of our portfolio companies. So it's a great time.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Gary, for that. Now, moving on to the next question. Yes, we have unicorns. Yes, we have established that we can build companies that can reach up to the unicorn level. But the whole point is, can we develop the softwares or the companies which can be world beating? I mean, can it dominate the world? Can it be world class products? If yes, what are the kind of markets that needs the startup to focus to develop such kind of product which can actually stand up in the world market, dominate the world market per se? So yeah, let's start with Anup.
Great question, Amit. So we're all looking forward to that. I think the spaces which, some of the spaces that Gary mentioned are going to be the highlight when it comes to global dominance. We can beat everybody on cost. Now that's natural, but we've got to beat everybody on tech. And when you want to beat people on tech, you need to have an understanding of the market. You need to understand the gaps and size up the market and figure out which is the most lucrative market to establish your product in, and then beat them with the cost as well. But the right to win in tech will come from a deep understanding of that market. The spaces where I feel that India could play a big role, where scalability and scalable solutions comes naturally to itself, could be areas like health, where the West is really struggling. They have broken experiences, systems that are not speaking to each other. There's simply a large cost, large legacies, and they're looking for maybe solutions. The similar thing is happening on the banking and financial services side. There could be areas like agriculture, which is also seeing a lot of transformation. Education is another some such space where we are already seeing examples of tech solutions being used and platforms being created by startup founders sitting here in India. They are aggregating teachers and resources from all over the world for students from all over the world, and they're doing it at a better cost than anybody else. So I think these could be some unique spaces where we could have a natural technology advantage, because we are already used to playing with scale in our own markets. And we've seen that, for example, with PharmEasy. We've seen that, for example, with Go Mechanic. Aggregation of a large number of SMEs, creating a value proposition for all the stakeholders in the game, then using the captured data to even do digital lending on top of the solutions, the zettabytes that Gary referred to earlier. That is something that comes naturally to us, and we can certainly create these solutions to tackle some of the legacy systems which are now aging in the developed part of the world and need to be replaced at a much lower cost than those economies can afford. So I think these would be the spaces that I would look for.
Thank you, Anup. Ashwin, over to you. What are the kind of spaces that you are feeling that India might have an edge over in creating the world-beating products?
So I think I mentioned this earlier, AI definitely and across multiple sectors, and there's no end to the type of problems that AI can solve. Access to a large data set that we have in India is something that could help on that front. The second piece where I really think that there could be a lot of help is because using our frugal engineering capability, space technology is something where we're seeing a lot of startups emerging, and it's an area that almost seems counterintuitive that you'd see startups, but using frugal engineering, low cost space tech and efforts around satellites, launch vehicles, and so on is potentially the other area where I think Indian startups could be disruptive.
Thank you, Ashwin. Gary, over to you. What kind of collaborations do you feel that India can bring onto the world, which can actually dominate the world market?
Yeah, so remember that, as we move forward with this digital transformation, it doesn't matter where you are, it matters about the type of talent that you have around you. So I know my partner in Splitbyte, who's also an IIT graduate. Look where Zoho's located, in a smaller Indian town, right? So city. So there's incredible opportunity everywhere. I think that where we can really dominate the spaces, create these multicultural, diverse teams. So we use Silicon Valley as a port. I lived in Russia for 14 years myself. I started the first accelerator in Russia and the number one private corporate accelerator, GBA Launch Guru. So it's about bringing the pieces together. The Germans have a phrase, Gestalt, the sum of the parts equal the whole. What we need to do is create these incredible teams. We use Silicon Valley as a port, as I said. Why? Because there's a lot of money, a lot of capital from around the world's located there. The valuations are high, and we can get out to, if we want partnerships with Deutsche Telekom, or we want to talk to SoftBank or Tim Draper. I mean, it's within 15 minutes of my office, right? They're close. So what I suggest is we build these teams. Multicultural diversity shows that the teams become a lot more resilient and stronger. So what I would suggest is, I'm a country boy from Pennsylvania, mate. I came from a 500-person village, literally, on top of a mountain, Amish on the right, Mennonites on the left. We kept everything simple. It was black and white and horns. It was a cow. So my suggestion is, let's build these teams, get the operational expertise, and take those teams to the globe using Silicon Valley as a port, from my perspective. Why? Because the infrastructure is already set up and you can move faster. A lot of it's about speed. The reason some of these unicorns are being created is not only because they've got incredible talent behind them, but they also have the right connections and network. And as you know, right, as a third wave of COVID is coming in as we speak, it's really important to use things like StreamYard, like Zoom. In fact, I remember when I was one of the early Zoom users, people said, "Oh, why would you use this Zoom? I have Skype," because it's great. So use those technologies. But what we have to do is, you still need to have the trust and credibility. And so anyhow, what I would do is I would move very, very quickly. I would use Silicon Valley as a port. It's not the only port, but right now it's a really good port. For the next 10 years or so, and longer, it's going to be one of the ports to be able to get it out. That doesn't mean you need to move your company there in entirety. It just means it's great to have an office located there. With Eva, my company, when I started it, came out of some Russian technology. We moved it over to Silicon Valley. Less than 3% of my employees are located in the Valley, right? So anyhow, That's what I would do. The other thing that's really important, just FYI, for each one of the startups, it's really important to have a really solid online presence today. People Google your name. As soon as you talk to them, they Google your name and your company. You need to make sure you're writing, you're looked at as an industry expert in all kinds of different ways. And it's critically important because that's really the first gate for any one of the VCs or partners to be able to vet you to make sure to see if there's interest in working with you. And by the way, make sure your LinkedIn profiles are up to date because that's number 2.
Thank you, Gary. Culturally diverse teams and starting up really fast, which gives us a substance to the next question. Let's talk about teams. I mean, if you are a startup, if I am a startup, if anyone has a startup, I mean, teams are the core of any company, of any startup, of any corporate business. So yes, this COVID-19 has created a disruption in the traditional workforce. We used to go office and then we used to work and then used to come back. But now everything has changed. We are completely going remote and we are introducing hybrid work. So with respect to India, I just want to ask that can India and Indian startup ecosystem cope up with this hybrid kind of hybrid kind of workforce, or maybe fully remote workforce? Is India ready for that, or Indian startups and Indian unicorns especially are ready to take on this job? Your views, Anup. Let's start from you.
Yeah, so I think look, the last 1 year has been a game changer both for consumers and for businesses, and even for VCs. You know, we've been writing checks without shaking hands with anyone. So there's a sea change in terms of mindsets in order to do business and make things happen. The same goes for employees. Employees are getting hired, they're getting fired, and they're getting promoted without anyone meeting anyone. So it's all happening across the screen. As Gary says, you know, you got to write stuff out when you're in this ecosystem. You got to have a digital presence. So your digital presence is far more important than your physical presence. Actually, I could, you know, hire someone today to perfectly, you know, impersonate me or my style of writing, and I could disappear or save all my time from morning to day for doing videos like these, where I
Yeah,
can't
Anoop,
just,
you
you
better
know,
not say that because there's going to hey, Anoop, there's going to be an Indian startup that says, "Boy, what a great idea! Deep fakes for an online."
exactly, exactly. So, you know, you could you could get somebody to ghostwrite for you. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody who'll come up and say that I'll get somebody to do a ghost video for you. I think we've all transformed ourselves. We've all mutated, much like the virus that's affected our lives, and that's what's come on. So working from home has come to be called working from anywhere. You could carry on with your life. You could decide where to be. All you need is a good internet connection and some, you know, power of focus, and you could conduct business. In fact, businesses are being conducted far more efficiently, I would say. We have LPs who are signing up, you know, for fundraising. We have founders who are being selected for signing term sheets. I mean, not just a couple of $1 million, but we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. And Ashwin was mentioning, you know, how we've had so many unicorns in the last 10 days. So certainly, you know, those term sheets are coming in all over Zoom calls. So I think that paradigm has completely shifted. We are open for business, you know, 24/7 across a screen, not across the table. And you know, that spirit of business is now completely gone digital as well.
Thanks, Anup. Ashwin, any kind of points or any different points that you want to add to this dimension?
No, I mean, totally agree with what Anup just said. I think we early days we had challenges around investing in startups. I think the investors found it harder to adapt than the startups, to be honest, because we're so used to meeting people, we're so used to getting a vibe, and that is so important in our investment decisions, especially as early stage investors. We've gotten used to it. We've signed checks now where we've not even met founders. I think the startups have already proven they can do work and do business over the last 1 year. So this is a question for a year back. I think Indian startups have already demonstrated well that it's now business as normal. I think the only challenge that I still see remaining is with many of our startups which are addressing global markets. and their inability to actually travel to meet people sitting, let's say, in the West Coast or somewhere in Europe. And sometimes deals are becoming a little bit, or customer conversations are taking a little bit longer than they otherwise would have, where founders or teams being able to travel and meet people in person to close customer conversations, especially when you're a startup sitting at the other end of the world. But save for that and the little bit of friction on that front, I think Indian startups have already demonstrated that it's business as usual and have been doing so for the many last few months. I just want to add one thing to something that Gary said. I think he said very, very rightly that, you got your digital presence, one, your LinkedIn profile, two, and I think the third one is our platforms like Glassdoor, which are becoming such key reference points for investors and other people who are just trying to figure out the way a startup culture, figure out the startup's culture or the way it is run by founders through seeing what employees are actually posting about the startup. So Glassdoor has become a big go-to, maybe number 3 on that list after the 2 that Gary mentioned.
Thanks, Ashwin. Great. Gary, you have mentioned, I think the question comes back again to you. So yeah, if you tend to hire me on a physically on a person to person, if you're seeing me, you would see how's my hair and how's my dressing sense and how is my resume, what kind of work I've done, and what kind of English I'm speaking. But moving on to the digital world, in the digital first world, what kind of a recruitment procedure? I mean, this is completely out of your scope, but just for fun, I just want to ask you what kind of additional things that you are looking for an employee to get hired online.
Well, I mean, the situation now, we do a lot of research. Like I said, we start to Google exactly what I said. We Google their name. We look, where they are, what they've done. We look at Facebook. We look at LinkedIn. We look at Twitter. We look at different types of social media. I mean, I've just hired a person. I've hired several people online without ever having met them. So in person. So, we're looking for, I do check Facebook, by the way, because the one thing about having a LinkedIn profile, but if you have a Facebook profile that is, it could be an entirely different kind of person than the LinkedIn profile. So we do check different types of social media. But this is really the world. I mean, look at where we are. I wrote an article in Forbes called Nikola Tesla's Dream Comes True, the democratization of opportunity, a couple of months ago. And that's really where we are today, right? It doesn't matter where you are. It matters if you can reach out and create that presence. I mean, we've got virtual backgrounds. We have real backgrounds, and you're right about it. We're going to have a deep fake. It's going to be, you'll have that vision of that person, but you really know if that person or not. It's going to be a little bit different. So the key for each one of those, if you're going to get hired today in this new world, is think out of the box. As Steve Jobs says, you need to think differently. Think about where those opportunities are. These decentralized companies are going to become more and more decentralized. You're going to be able to use the right kind of economy if you can get the software service developed in a place like India or Vietnam or Russia, or wherever it is. Use that skill. Look for not only the best price, but the best talent to be able to get it done. And more importantly, the best people that can be members of the team. Because when it's all said and done, you talk about building a team. What do we look for? This is I call it my rule of threes. You want to have a startup founder that's charismatic, that can present. You need a startup founder that's operational. You need a startup founder that's technical, from my perspective. You need to have a balance within your team. At the same time as you're going to move forward, it's not easy. You need people that, look at the glass as half full rather than half empty. Some cultures around the world say, oh, I don't know. Maybe I can do it. Maybe I can. It's not about that. You either can get it done or not. You need to be able to believe in your dream and move it forward. These are really the soft skills of building a startup. I had dinner with the right-hand man of a guy by the name of Rupert Murdoch. and the brother of the founder of Google was with me, Carl Page, just a couple years ago in Palo Alto. And he said, Andrew Straczynski, he is the one who bought the Wall Street Journal for $4 billion. And I had a couple glasses of wine. We were a little loose. And I said, what's one characteristic of the best entrepreneurs in the world? He said, I've studied 3,000. The number one characteristic, he said, amnesia. They never talk about the past. They don't let the past hold them back. And really, that's really critically important. It's about today and the future and what you're going to create. Listen, building a startup with Eva, and I have a billionaire partner, David Yang. When we started the company, we had to pivot 3 times. Is it easy to pivot? I don't care if you have $1 billion. It's never easy, right? So we had to pivot the company, like doing the customer development, going out and meeting with people, talking to them, finding out what they want and need. And more importantly, are they willing to take money out of their pocket to pay for it? Can you validate what your assumptions are? Many times, the companies, especially with technical founders, build products that are either overbuilt or products that nobody wants, but they want them. I had it happen to me in my 3rd startup. What I did is I thought I knew better than everybody else how to build this technology for my customers, and I was completely wrong. It cost me $1 million, and I had to sit on it for 3 years. So, the key is think positively, build these culturally diverse teams, be resilient, and look at the market. It's not just about your home market, although it's great to, you need to dominate your home market first, but look at how you can take that to the rest of the world, no matter where it is at any point. And the other thing, remember, there's some challenges that we have. The population of the planet Earth will go from about 8 billion to 13 billion by the end of this century. Agritech, farm tech, how to be able to maximize the efficiencies, how to be able to use the technology, sensors, Internet of Things, to be able to tie all this data together, to be able to make our lives better, to be able to give us more food and to live more comfortably.
Excellent, Gary. Thank you for the great points. Now, moving on to the next question. What is that one exciting startup or one innovative startup that is close to your heart, that has not gained so much prominence, or maybe is about to is about to get famous in the future, but it is close to your heart and you like it so much because of the problems they are solving and the kind of technology they have adopted it. So let's hear from each of you. Anup.
Well, this one is a difficult one to choose, and I won't choose one from India. And maybe it doesn't matter whether it's a unicorn or not. But if it's making an impact in your life, and if you use it every day, then it's worth talking about. And for me, it's Calendly. It's been around, and not enough people, I think. Once you realize the power of it, you kind of use it absolutely, everywhere. It helps you to manage your calendar. It helps other people, to feel privileged that they can block any time on your calendar without having to do the email back and forth. It has options for Google and Zoom and everything else. So, for all of us who are working in the time economy, so to speak, with time spent between various priorities, what you don't want to do is have yet another channel of communication. You're already handling some social media, you're handling WhatsApps, you're handling the WeChats in some other parts of the world, you're handling the LinkedIns, and then you've got your email, and then you've got your calendar. Now, how do you, manage to sync all those conversations that are happening between your mobile and your email and your LinkedIn and various other, priorities? And how do you manage your calendar? That's the biggest challenge. And this is one app that I found, was very good, simple to use right from the word go. You don't need a training manual. You don't need to, look up some link on how to use it, nor do people who you send it to. You can personalize it, and it just does things wonderfully. You can just earmark the time zones. You can just do things absolutely efficiently. So how to be a productive business person, and I recommend it, to everyone, is something that Calendly really helps you to do. So that's one thing that's not very often talked about, not as much as the others like Tesla or whatever else, but it's certainly extremely useful.
As simple as that, but as effective and powerful it is. Anup, thank you for that. Ashwin, Moving on to you, what is that one startup that is close to your heart, that is actually that makes you feel that this is going to create a difference?
Was that for me, Amit?
Yes, yes, Ashwin.
Yeah. Let me talk about one. So we have a company called Entropic Technologies, and these guys have a bunch of global customers across UK, across France, and across the US, and they also recently raised capital from a couple of international investors. The AI engine that they've created with these two input factors allows you to understand what a consumer's emotional response is to any sort of digital property, be it a website, be it an app, mobile, be it a digital property, and so I see this becoming fairly pervasive. You spoke about the HR, the ability to recruit, what's happening online. So that's the other potential use case for something like this, which is really you have HR interviews that are conducted online, but getting to the ground truth is becoming harder and harder in the digital world. And something like this, where they use the psyche of the person you're interviewing better, is the other use case. The third use case is, given that education has gone online in such a big way, just the ability to figure out how the to any educated emotion you're able to elicit with your content is something that can be mapped out with this product. And so I see a fairly vast array of use cases that this provides, and right at the cutting edge of technology in terms of we're thinking of bringing not just brainwave mapping and facial coding, but also adding voice to the mix. And then once you get truly multimodal, you're really able to understand a lot of things.
Okay, Ashwin. Again, we lost tits and bits of the conversation we had right now. So, moving on to Gary, what is your favorite startup?
Yeah, so we have a startup we've been working with called Splitbike, and again, he's the founder's an IIT PhD, and also another IIT graduate. And look at where we are today with all this data, with everything's being connected, the Internet of Things. As I said, with 40 zettabytes of data, cybersecurity is a big challenge, right? We're being hacked all the time. Now, if you look at quantum computers, people don't realize a quantum computer can be 100 million times faster than a supercomputer today. And in comparison, what does that mean? That means it's something that would take 10,000 years on a supercomputer can be done in 200 seconds on a quantum computer. So we're also in a state of exposure. So we're looking at companies like Splitbyte directly that actually split the data up, move it on to different sources, encrypt it, and make it virtually quantum proof. Those kind of technologies, we better look at them. And if you look at the hacks that are happening, they're getting more and more sophisticated. About 2 months ago, I had a 4-star admiral, the former #2 guy in all the U.S. military, on my show, and we were talking about it. He said that the challenge is our grids are vulnerable, our water supplies are vulnerable, our lives are vulnerable. We need to come up with tools to be able to protect us against these quantum attacks, and we need to do it now. So Splitbyte is the one that today, of course, all my companies I love, but if you're asking me, where would the alarms going off, it's cybersecurity.
Thank you, Gary. So we are moving to the end of this show. Last but not the least, your closing remarks on India, its arising opportunities, and its a competition that it is going to give in the coming days. So yes, the closing remarks. Ashwin, over to you. Yep, Ashwin, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I thought that was no. I think this and the opportunity is huge to address India as a market, and startups are going to emerge, which will continue to do that. I also think that we're at the beginning of a trend where a lot of Indian startups are going to really address global markets. And India are going to
All right, Ashwin, I think we lost you. Anup, over to you, your closing remarks.
Well, there can't be any closing remarks. This is just one of the first topics or the first shows on this topic that I must say, and there'll be many more shows on this as the India evolves, Indian economy evolves, and India tech gets recognized in a bigger way in the coming future. So I really look forward to Indian tech entrepreneurs creating big success stories, certainly solving a lot of problems that India definitely has, creating value internally for all our stakeholders, all our citizens at multiple, socioeconomic levels, and all of us are looking forward to that. But also creating some big tech greats, which get global prominence in the years to come. So look forward to with a lot of pride for that, and hope to be associated with a few of them. So that's that's a bit of a wish that I'd like to leave with on this show. Yeah.
Thank you, Anup. Gary, over to you.
Yeah, sure. There's incredible opportunities for the Indian companies. This is really the dawn of a new day. And there was a movie many years ago with Harrison Ford called Indiana Jones, Crusaders of the Last Ark. I remember he was talking to his Sean Connery played his father, and he said, "Remember to choose wisely." So today's a great opportunity. Think about where you want to go. Going global is critically important for the companies. You've got incredible talent, incredible expertise, and a very profound mindset. Move forward quickly, do it the right way, and as Steve Jobs said, get stuff done. So you can reach me, Gary Fowler, on LinkedIn. You can reach me on Twitter. I've got shows a couple of times a week. In fact, I've had one of the top quantum physicists coming from Pranita Najar from Harvard University. The next Stephen Hawking's on my show in a couple of weeks should be quite interesting. So go out and get them. Look at quantum, AI, use it in the right way, and let's work together to make the world a better place.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Ashwin. Thank you, Anup, for the coming onto the show and sharing your great insights. It was really wonderful show, and our viewers will definitely love to watch this show again and again. So we'll meet again the next time with the fresh new topics. And until then, bye bye. Have a good day.
Bye bye.